This is a conversation I had with my friend Bob Wild after he got back from scouting a photography trip in Namibia. And fortunately, Bob and I, we feel the same way about just sharing knowledge. We're not giving away trade secrets here. This is just sharing things that we've learned about planning a photography trip. And it's not an exhaustive conversation, but we touch on a lot of the important topics, and this is an hour-long conversation. If you think we forgot something, then of course leave us notes and questions in the comments. There are two different ways you can use this conversation to help yourself. So number one, when you start taking your photography seriously, you just think about your travels differently. You're not taking a camera on a family vacation, taking a walk around town for an hour, or just getting some photos for yourself. I'm talking about a purposeful photography trip where you're spending the majority of your trip just, capturing photos during the day. And that includes everything that goes along with that, being at the right locations during the best light, having the right gear with you, working with a good guide, translator, knowing restrictions for the locations that you want to visit, just everything so that when you get there, you're not surprised and you can actually capture the photos that you want to capture. So that's number one. We'll touch on a lot of those topics. And then the second would be if you're looking to go on a trip with a photographer as a paid workshop, look for an operator who has thought through all of these topics. Now, I like doing things myself. I like figuring things out for myself. And I consider luxury travel to be going on a trip where somebody else has thought of all the details. They're taking the stress out of it for me, and I can just enjoy being there and doing the activity that I want to do. So without further ado, my conversation with Bob Wild. I wanted to talk to you, follow up on this Namibia trip that you did, because myself, when I start, scouting these bike tours that I do and planning travels for other people, it affected my photography and my art, if you can call it art, in different ways. And I see the world differently. I see my photography differently through the perspective of, planning these sort of travel tours. So is this the first one that you've done like this, where you're planning to take other photographers, and how has that sort of changed your perspective of what you do with your photography?
I've run workshops before.
Sure.
I've done workshops before. So on that side of it, that's pretty good. I've done
international though, or is this the first one that you're doing?
This will be the first international workshop, and this is the first time I was actually in Africa. So the background story, basically, to do it quickly, is I've been in touch with an actual professional hunting guide. So he takes people out to shoot the animals.
to shoot bang bang, not shoot.
Yeah, with a gun, not with a camera. And I went, what? If you really look at it, hunters and photographers were doing basically the same thing. So I'm out early in the morning looking for that sunset or the great light that's coming up early in the morning. You're out there just happen to be, because the animals eat in the morning, so you're out there doing the same thing. I'm doing the same thing at night. I'm going to stay up late at night to go out and take pictures of the animals because they're coming back and doing the water holes and things like that. Mm-hmm. They're doing the same thing. We're sitting in the same spot. So to get together with him and do photography on the side of it really wasn't a big change for him. Now the change was he doesn't have a gun. He never uses a gun, but he's never used a camera before. So I
think we talked about this on our last conversation, that you were going out with a hunting guide, and that seems perfectly natural to me, because who better to know where the animals are going to be at what time of day, and they know their behaviors and their patterns and where they go, and it seems perfectly natural.
Yeah, to me it was a natural fit. So this trip was crazy. It was basically to get over there and find out the good spots that I can take people, so that I'm not exploring, but I'll know the next time.
How much of your photography trip with guests is planned around, it's not really a safari, or it is, or you're planning some days to be safari and looking for animals and some days are landscape, or what's your balance?
Well, there is no balance. There's probably about 3 days, 4 days of doing animals, because you can't go to Africa without taking pictures of the animals there. So you get the antelopes and the elephants and the rhinoceroses, the coyotes, or actually jackals are called over there, zebras. You'll get all that. And that's probably the first 3 days, 4 days. And the rest of it is landscape. So you're doing morning, evening shoots, and starts, because there's no clouds over there. That's one of the first things I had to learn, was because here, BC, I live in Vancouver Island, there's clouds. You never get a really blue sky. There's always clouds. So for me to get cloudscapes and use the clouds as part of my image, too easy.
Right.
There, no clouds. So you have to adjust your way of shooting so that you minimize that empty space at the top of blue.
Is that just, is that the majority of the year, or at least the dates that you're planning the tour? You don't expect to have any cloud cover?
No, it rained a week before that, and then there was we didn't see a cloud. I might have saw 5 minutes worth of rain coming down when I first arrived, and that was it. It was 30 degrees and hot. We're in a desert. Namibia is a desert. It's the world's oldest desert. So on that side of it.
And you're in a time of year, I guess it's kind of their end of their summer there, right? It's their fall season.
Yeah. April 1st is when I run my tours. It's a fall season. So on that side of it, it's really cool. To make things, I stayed in hotels the whole time I was there. We were in very expensive hotels. But unfortunately, some of the hotels were 200 or 300 kilometers away from where I wanted to be. So that's why I wanted to go and scout out this trip. Now I know where we have to be. We've scouted the areas out. We know when I want to be in those areas, and I know where we got to tent and where we got to spend. And there's some nice campgrounds out there. Mm-hmm. I'm actually amazed. There's some, really nice campgrounds, showers. You'd think they'd have showers in the middle of nowhere, but they've got showers out there in some of these campgrounds.
Sure.
So, and some of the other cool things, like Etosha National Park, you've got the great big salt lake there. You see for miles, days. It's just salt lake. So there's a lot of stuff in there. You could probably shoot in, and it's very similar to the States. Death Valley. We were in, I can't even pronounce it. It's called Deadvli. Deadvli, yeah. I guess
that's what I pronounce. I don't know how it's actually pronounced.
Yeah.
How different is that from what you normally shoot? Did you walk into the landscape and go, wow, I don't know how to approach this? Or did you immediately think of, tools that you normally use at home, or how different was it?
It was different because you had to sit there and think a little bit more. I shoot a lot of HDR, and a lot of it because usually morning and evening is what I'm trying to shoot. In some of these places, they were mid-afternoon, and it's bright and it's sunny. So I look for the shadow, see where the shadow is, and try to minimize the shadow from the tree and shoot in a direction where the shadow is either not going to be seen or minimized out of your way. Shadows are one of those things I don't like to use. And the way I was taught was get rid of the shadow. But if you can use shadows in an artistic form, coming towards your sort of idea, that you could probably do. But a lot of times the shadows are in the wrong direction for where the sand dunes were.
The spots that you want to be, were you able to access them at the time of day, or when you're taking guests there, you can get there at the time of day that you want to photograph them?
Yeah, there's going to be, because we're going to do some tenting, you're going to be camping. So there's a few times that we were out in areas that I wanted to stay longer and we just couldn't do it. We had to travel. You got to realize this was a fact-finding mission. So basically, we did 3,800 kilometers in 8 days.
That's a lot. So did you have to travel because of your scouting trip? Like, I've been on those trips before as well, where in order to make my route and get all of the spots in that I want to scout, I can't spend as much time here as I'd like. But when I come back with guests, we can stay overnight here and shoot this in the morning, shoot it at night and again in the morning. Or the places that you're going, are they restricted because it's a national park, or because you can't camp in the park, or are there restrictions like that?
There are restrictions like that. When you're in Etosha National Park, you can't get out of the car.
Because of the animals, or it's just
because of the animals? There's lions, and we stopped at one time. The guy, it was fascinating, and thank heavens I had a guide with me because a lot of things I missed. we're zipping down the road because we're trying to make some time. He hammers on the brakes,
Hmm.
backs up probably 400 feet, and goes, "Look out your window." I look out my window. Here's a king cobra sitting there.
You didn't see that when we drove by the first time?
Not a bit. I didn't see it at all.
But having the local guide it's super important because they know what they're looking for. They've been there before. They can point things out to you.
Well, it was good for him because, like I said, he didn't know photography, so he brought a camera along. And some of the places we had been, he had never spent that amount of time in the area. So there are things that he had never seen. Etosha National Park, you go to the watering holes, and there must have been 400 animals there.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. And like he said, watch it. The elephants will go drink first. Everybody else, because they're the biggest animal. Once they're finished playing, they'll walk away, and then the rest of the smaller, the antelopes and the zebras and the sturbucks and all the rest of the things will come in. But yeah, it to sit there and see that many animals is just fascinating. Yeah.
Good reason to stay in the car too.
Well, you know, you're supposed to stay in the car. I never got out of the car and put my feet on the ground, but there are times I'm sitting on the door shooting over the roof.
So by car, what kind of vehicle are we talking about? What does that look like?
This time around, we were in a Volkswagen truck. I didn't know Volkswagen made four-wheel drive trucks, but we were in a Volkswagen truck. So we had 2 spare tires in the back. It's just like being on a safari. There's 2 spare tires in the back, a bunch of gear in the back. If you get a flat, you're going to start changing tires. The gravel roads, some portions were deplorable. They're so washboardy that, you know, if you're doing over 60 kilometers an hour, you're hitting your head on the roof.
Are we talking about vehicles that have normal roll down windows, or like a roll cage over the top where it's open on the sides and you can have like 3 or 4 photographers on each side of the vehicle shooting out?
When I start taking people next year, April 1st, we will have a vehicle where you can lower the windows and shoot out. You'll have, if we fill the course up, there'll be 8 people. So 6 people along the seats will be able to sit by a window. That just depends on which side which window you're on which way we park. But it was interesting. I was absolutely amazed at how quickly the guide picked up certain things. We looked for light. So he knows what light looks like and knows what light we're looking for. He would actually say, "Hold on, I'm going to move the car for you," and we'll put it into a different position so that we could get a proper shot of whatever we're looking for, the bird in the tree or the zebra or whatever it is. So he'd wheel the truck around.
Yeah.
And look for that shot.
Yeah.
But that was pretty cool.
That's key. And not all guides can do that. But when you get a good one, I've been with those guys too. Like my trip in Morocco, there were some spots where like in the afternoon, the guide would say, "You see that storm coming over there? In about an hour, there's going to be perfect light right there." I'm like, "You don't know what you're talking about. Come on." And he was absolutely right, just because he knows the patterns in that desert and the way the clouds come through and the way that the storms happen. He was absolutely right. There was going to be light in just the perfect spot in 1 hour.
Well, that's why you pay for some of these things. You pay for this guy and that's part of our thing. You know, you've got a photographer with you, and you've got a professionally hunting guide with you. There are things out there that can harm you. Like we walked into one of the hotels, and there's hornet about this big flying around. I opened the door and started kicking. He goes, "No, you don't want to do that. Just open the door and let it go." That thing is going to hurt you, pal. Like, yeah, okay.
Sure.
I trust you.
What are there any kind of special travel considerations for going to Namibia? Is that same as South Africa, or like you fly into South Africa and then travel up the coast a little ways? What do you have to know for travel there?
Well, we flew into Windhoek, which is the capital, and then we hopped in a car and headed north. That's when I checked the website on Namibia, you've got to have yellow fever. Medical's a big thing, so yellow fever is one of those things you have to have. And malaria is very prevalent in the northern part and further up. We didn't see a lot of mosquitoes. I think one night we had to put up with mosquitoes, but nothing realistic as mosquitoes. So your medical is basically got to be up to date. So you got to be prepared with that. You've, like any other safari, you've got to be prepared for weather to change. So they say it gets cold at night. I'm -2, -3 here, -4 on Vancouver Island, which is kind of a warm place in Canada. Their cold night is 6 or 7. So my guy's walking around with a blanket trying not to freeze, and I'm walking around with shorts and a t-shirt on going, what are you doing? So like,
So be prepared for a range of temperatures though, like cold at night and pretty hot in midday.
Yeah, hiking shoes. Do not wear flip-flops on the sand. It's hotter than heck. He wore flip-flops. I couldn't believe, I had hiking boots on or running shoes at that particular time. He was wearing flip-flops on the sand. And you'd hear him screaming, ow, that's hot, ow, that's hot. It's like, yeah, okay, learned that one. Yeah, no. So I had we supply you a list of what you need to take with you when you go there. Good pair of hiking boots, because you're going to do a bit of walking, but most of the time, like the first 4 days, you're in the car. You're not doing a lot of walking. But the dunes and things like that, you have to get out and walk on. You have to get out and walk on the dunes to get some of those great images of leading lines, shadows. There's a perfect time when you go and you work with shadows. No, that's a different style for me. I don't work with shadows. I'm in the woods on my normal day-to-day. When I shoot here in Vancouver Island, I'm usually in the woods. Their trees are all dead.
Yeah, compositions are completely different. Well, it's simpler. You don't have to pick out a subject that you're photographing. Like in the woods, I have a hard time photographing in the woods because there's trees everywhere. How do you separate this tree from the rest of the trees?
Yeah, and that side of it can be a little bit different. It's a little bit, you got to switch your mindset pretty quickly. I did something I thought was unique. I took 2 different styles of cameras with me. I shot with my Sony, and I used my Sony as my wide angle. And I shot with the Olympus 4/3 and used that as a telephoto. And I had the 40-150, which gives me 300. I was quite impressed at how well that 4/3 did. But when I did my landscape, it basically sat in the bag, and I brought out my Sony. And a lot of times I had 2 cameras ready to go. I had the Sony and the Olympus at my feet all the time. So as we're driving along, whatever I needed, I didn't have to switch lens. I could capture what I wanted at that time.
So as far as packing list for photography, you would say everything from wide angle to telephoto?
Yep.
Well, because you're photographing landscapes, which you want to be creative with the wide angle, and wildlife, so you need that telephoto, long telephoto as well.
Yeah.
And not everybody has to take 2 cameras. You just happen to have different systems, different lenses, so you took everything.
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly it. Realistically, though, for a couple, the first, while you're out there shooting the animals, a good 400 to 600 millimeters is going to be great where we were. I had a 300 millimeter with an extension, a tilt extension on it, 1.4. So I was getting, the system says 210, but I know because of the smaller sensor, it's 4. And a lot of times, a lot of my images are cropped in. And if you get your focus bang on, I don't see a lot of issues with cropping into some of these images. But
Is that photographing on a tripod or from the vehicle while you're moving?
Vehicle, usually we have the vehicle stopped. There's nowhere in the vehicle to put a tripod.
Right.
Might work, but for me, the the image stabilization in the Olympus did really well.
Okay.
Did amazingly well. Now, granted, there's a lot of images I took that are crap, but as well as I know that you take 100 images and you might get 4.
Beanbags?
Yeah, you could probably use them. I didn't. You got to realize, the Olympus is so small, so light. It's very easy to hand hold for hours. If you're shooting with a Canon or a Nikon 600 millimeter, that's like 3-4 pounds. It's going to be tired after a while. Right. So the Olympus system for me was perfect on that side. Handheld all the time, no problems. Never got tired.
If somebody were to come on the trip and do they need to bring their own tripod or bean bag, or can you get those for them?
Yeah.
And for somebody who doesn't know what I'm talking about, like if you're shooting over the sill of a car window and you have your camera sitting out the window, you don't want it bouncing on the window. You want to put a bean bag in there to have something to rest it on and give you nice smooth motions with your camera.
Yeah, a bean bag would be fine. A small monopod, a small tripod would probably fit in that area pretty easily. That was another thing, backup. I backed up my cards every night. So I copied them to my tablet, and then I backed them up to a hard drive, and then I left them on my SD card. So I have 3 copies of everything in case anything went tits up. I shot 110 gigs. So a terabyte. And a little over 32 gigs worth of, 110 gigs, not terabyte, 110 gigs, get it right. 110 gigs of photos, and 32 gigs of that was movies.
When you went in and talked to your guide about, when you were getting set up and planning your shot lists, did you talk to him about what kind of shots you wanted to get, both photo and video, and did they help you kind of find those locations, like they help you find the photos?
Well, yeah, after a while, after the third day of shooting and the excitement's over, you kind of work on, here's what I want to shoot. And so you have that option to say, okay, I want a shot of this animal and I want a straight on shot of his head. And then you work a little further and you get other shots of different animals on the heads. Like I said, the elephant shot, I wanted a headshot of an elephant. I wanted a nice close-up direct headshot with his ears open. Didn't get the elephant I wanted because one had a broken tusk. I wanted that one, but
Did you go into the trip expecting or looking for to fulfill a shot list for your video though?
Nope. Video was just coming along because I wanted to try it. I was there. Caution if you're going over there. Certain areas you can't fly drones. I didn't even take the drone out of the friggin' bag. I left it in the bag all the time there. If you're going into Etosha National Park, they will stop you and want to see your camera gear.
For what reason?
They want to see if you've got drones.
Okay, but they're not. They didn't confiscate anything, or are they looking for other than drones? Is there anything?
I opened up my camera bag and said, "There you go. There's my camera equipment. My drone was in my other pack." I wasn't telling them I had a drone. They'd take it away.
How about at Deadley area?
Yeah, none of the other spots they cared. They didn't care.
Okay.
But I didn't see anybody else flying a drone. And I was, first time there, photography is my thing. Flying a drone, not so much. I find now Skylum has a new software out dedicated to drone photography. I find the images that come off the drone a lot of times don't have the detail that I like and the shot that I really want. So I don't use it for photographs. I use it for video of places that I've been to add that little bit extra to the videos that I do.
Yep.
But other than that, I don't use it for photography per se. It just doesn't have it just,
It's basically like putting a point and shoot camera up into the air and you get what you get.
Yeah, on a lot of it. It just doesn't cut it. I did have an extra day there. Well, not an extra day. I had 5 hours before the flight left that night. So I had 5 hours to spend. So we did go downtown and do some shopping. It was interesting to note, whether you want to or not, when you park, there's a guy there leaving a note on your door saying, "I'm guarding your car for you."
Oh, yeah. I love those. And you got to pay them whether they do anything or not. Just
That's right. Yeah.
there's no rules about who can guard your car. They just put up a chair there and that's the guy you got to pay.
That's right. That was interesting.
This is the best racket ever. I love that.
Okay. My car is a couple bucks. But it's interesting. No, like Canadian dollars to Namibian dollars, and the Namibian dollar was like a dime. So on that side of it, I paid $108 for a ball cap. So it was like $10.80. Yeah, it's like, okay.
That's important. I haven't traveled to that part of the world, but whenever you can travel somewhere that your money goes further, that's always nice.
Well, yeah, but things are very expensive. The guy bought a Canon T5. I bet you it was a T5 and 2 lenses, and it was 1,500 US.
That doesn't sound outrageous.
Yeah, it would be even for Canada. I could have probably got the same deal for a little under $1,000 here, and 2 kit lenses.
Okay.
And 2.
Yeah, that's true. It's probably hard to find there, so they get to mark it up a lot.
Yeah, some of the stuff there is very expensive. So basically, because we talk every second or third day to the guide, it was like, yeah, no, you're not buying any more camera gear, buddy. I'll bring you stuff. You'll owe me money. He had a 70 to 200 or 70 to 300 on a Canon, and it seemed to work okay. There was some kind of interesting stuff that I had never done before. I probably won't do it again. It's definitely not my style. And I'm going to, for lack of better words, is pit lamping. We were at one of the hotels, and they light up the ground at night so that you can see the animals coming in to feed at or drink at the watering hole. So you see white rhinos. Apparently we missed the lions at the watering hole. So basically it's 4 great big halogen lights that turn on at night when it gets dark out. And the animals can see the watering hole, and they'll walk up. You'll see giraffes. You'll see all sorts of them at the watering hole at that particular time. Not something that I do. I went out to shoot it because the guide wanted to shoot it, and he's got a couple ideas in his head. He had seen pictures that he wanted to try. Mm-hmm. And I'm not one to say, no, don't give it a try. It's not like filming. It's not going to cost you a buck or two to get developed. You can see it right away to see whether it's working or not. So he went out and did a bunch of shoots like that. Wasn't my idea of a great thing. I took a bunch of shots and then just deleted them.
What time of night are we talking?
11 o'clock at night.
Okay.
Yeah, we were at 11 o'clock that night till about 1 in the morning watching these animals come up.
Have you also checked for the travel dates that you're planning? Is there anything interesting in the night sky at that time?
Yeah. We spent another night out shooting the Milky Way. Milky Way was there without any issues. So the Milky Way was
no clouds. So
yeah. So the only issue
bonus there,
trying to find something, because I don't have the vehicle, trying to find particular areas of where I can do painting with light and mixing in the Milky Way. So we actually spent one night with another guide, because we stayed at the hotel, another private hotel. We had a guide stayed with us. This was actually quite interesting. We parked our vehicle at the main lodge, and they said be outside the lodge at 6 o'clock. And then at 6 o'clock, the vehicle comes to pick you up with another guide, hostess, and the cook. And you drive another 20 minutes up to another restaurant, and the cook will start doing his meals, and the hostess gets everything ready, and the other guy will take you out for a walk around the area. So at that particular time, we went out and we chased spiders. There was, I didn't see any tarantulas, but we saw some sort of white spider. I guess, again, if it bit you, you'd be down for 5 days. But these guys were crazy. They were playing with it, poking at it, and the thing moves pretty quickly. I'm going nowhere near it. In fact, my 300 millimeter wasn't enough to get away from this thing.
You guys go play with the spiders. I'll stand 200 yards away and take pictures.
Yeah. But it was interesting because he was able to, I would never notice this stuff, but he's a guy. He would walk through the dirt, the sand, and be able to pick out the spider web holes. I knew which were old. So it actually goes into the hole, builds a web around the hole to make a home, and then sits in the hole. And when creatures go by, grabs it and comes back in.
Cool.
But the holes are, size of your thumb. And this is a spider.
Are we talking like the trapdoor spider?
Similar, but it wasn't a trapdoor. This one was as white as your pen. It's totally as white as your pen. I can't remember the name of it, but that was before supper. After supper got even freakier. We all got UV lights, and these guys are nuts. Went out looking for scorpions.
Yeah, I don't like scorpions.
I'm not a big guy. Another time, yeah, my 300 wasn't long enough. But we went out, we found a bunch of scorpions, and they were sitting there poking and playing and down there with their cell phone, because with UV light, the scorpion glows blue.
All right, so we're talking about things that your guides took you outside of the camp to go find to photograph, not things that were inside the camp, right?
No. They had can't think of it. It's kind of like a rat, but it's a gerbil, I guess, running around the restaurant. It was a pet.
A hutia.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had those in, maybe it's a different thing. In Cuba, they have this thing called a hutia, which looks like a big rat. But yeah, they have them as pets too.
Gerbil. Yeah, they consider it a pet. So they feed it and have a good time with it.
Yeah.
We consider it a rat, and we poison them off and get rid of their things. Also, there's kind of like a little salamander that we were out shooting. When you hit them with UV light, they kind of glow.
Cool.
So they're interesting because they'll stand because of the sand, especially during the daytime. The sand is so hot that they kind of alternate feet up and down. So their back foot on the left and the right foot on the right would be up in the air, and then they'll switch it around. And we also did see some rattlesnake traps or tracks. Sidewinders.
They had rattlesnakes there.
Neither did I, but they call them sidewinders. It's like, I didn't see the snake, I just saw the tracks. So he points them out. Say, okay, it's going which way? That way. Well, I'll go that way. And that's something I was going to go after. So. Working with
the hunting guide, were there a lot of things that you wanted as a photographer that you're customizing for your guests when you take people that they didn't normally do, or that you were like, are you adding things to their itinerary, or did they pretty much all of their services meet your needs as a photographer?
No, we're hacking out the itinerary. The guide and I are now, the website is just up. I launched it the 1st of May, and I'm hacking out the itinerary with them right now. I was only there for 8 days, and the trip I did in 8 days, there's no way you're going to get eight people in a vehicle around that area in 8 days. So we've got 10 days. The trip is going to be 10 days, and we've added one more spot that I want to go to. And we've added kind of like areas where it's going to be breaks. So my mind is, you're going to be shooting in the morning, travel maybe 4 hours, 400 kilometers to your next spot, and then getting ready that night to shoot something a little bit differently.
Okay.
Plus, one of the things that we haven't discussed is the interest in, if you're big into eating, my God, you're getting all sorts of different animals to eat. It's not cow. You get aurochs, and you're getting all these wild animals that are always in your way. Getting to eat different types of animals all the way through the trip.
What about somebody that has maybe dietary restrictions and they're vegetarian?
Yeah, well, there's all sorts of vegetables and things like that are there. You can do that as well. Dietary restrictions, I don't see that being an issue either. There's always vegetables around, lots of meals. In fact, they have so many vegetables, it's crazy. But a lot of stuff in Namibia they have to import all these things. So that's, I found, was interesting. A lot of their fruit and vegetables are imported.
Huh.
And what you and I think of as a farm is totally different there. You and I think of a farm and you grow cattle. They have a large lot of land. They put up a fence, and whatever's in that area is a farm.
They have a spider farm, a scorpion farm.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Whatever's in that fence is part of that farm. But that's how a lot of the guys make their money, is through tourism and selling off the animals.
Sure.
That's an interesting way.
So give us a quick rundown of what kind of photos people can expect to make on this kind of trip.
I would expect to make almost everything that I can actually think of. Anywhere from fine art to great animal photos. I post a lot of this on my Facebook and on the website that I've created.
So we were talking about what kind of photos you can make on this sort of trip. Is there a gallery here?
No, I haven't put up a gallery. You can shoot animals. You're going to be doing landscapes. You're going to be doing stars. So on that side of it, you're going to be doing a lot of shooting. So those are basic three that you're going to be doing. It's interesting because I can remember, it was only been a month ago when I arrived. Three things as a travel photographer, and you'll probably say the same thing. You go through a stage, especially with the animals. One is you click and shoot everything because it's a memory and you don't want to miss it.
Mm-hmm.
And the second day you start slowing down, and now you're able to pick your shots and get them a little better, and you're going to kind of work your shot where you're going to want to wait for a headshot, or you're going to want to wait for a side view or an eye-to-eye sort of idea. And by the third day, you're shooting the hell out of the way because you're trying to make time. So
right.
that I found was quite interesting on that side of it, how my mind actually worked when I arrived until I finally settled down and worked on my images.
That's great advice. Is a lot of people that do these kind of trips, it's, they'll only do it once in their lifetime, and going in, you want to have a plan, a strategy. How am I going to make the most of this time versus just wasting that first day, like you said, just kind of clicking everything. So yeah, having some advice, but that's what you're there for. You're the professional. You can give people that advice on how to make the most of their trip, right?
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. Relax. We're going to get another shot of these guys.
Right.
But that picture is one of the watering holes. Where'd you get that? Oh, you brought up my Instagram.
I flipped over to your Instagram page here.
That was quick.
Yeah, I've been following. You've been posting some beautiful shots from there. I imagine this is one of the places you stayed?
Yeah, that's the restaurant. That's one we were just talking about, where we were chasing scorpions and spiders at night. So that was a really nice spot.
Well, you lied. You said there's no clouds there. That looks like a beautiful sky shot.
That was probably one of the only nights that there was a cloud in that area. If you go to the other shot over top of the pan, go up one. I think I posted it yesterday. There's a picture of the pan. So there you go. You see for miles. And these guys are actually quite a distance away. And they're out there and they can see for miles. You'll never get anywhere close to those guys.
You can drive pretty much anywhere though, right? You're not restricted to just driving on improved roads.
No, speaking of that, it's quite interesting to mention that, because there's not very many paved highways that we were on. We mostly did gravel roads the whole trip. There's only maybe 500 kilometers that I ever saw pavement.
Mm-hmm.
And so everything's dusty and dirty. So that's going to be an issue that I'm going to have to work out with the guide. Is basically, we were lucky. We had the truck was able to hold 4 people, so I could put my gear in the back, and it was out of the dust. I kept my gear always out of the dust, and even my luggage was out of the dust. But his was in the box of the truck. Oh my God, it was dusty every time you turn around. He had some decent luggage where you could, it was hard cased and sealed. So when he closed it up, it was airtight. Mm-hmm. But that was one of the things as well. You want to make sure that your luggage is going to be good. It's got to take some pounding. It's interesting to note that we had the guide, professional hunting guide, and we had a trapper. Now, you and I think of as trapper as somebody who goes out and they know exactly where the animals are going, what the animals are doing, and they know how to track an animal. That's not what it means over there. Tracker is kind of like your porter. So the tracker looks after the trucks and all the gear and everything that's in there.
Your tracker is like your fixer. Like, hey, we need to do this next. They're the person that takes care of everything.
Yeah, kind of like that. Like I said, a porter at a hotel, he'll bring your luggage in, take your luggage out, and all that okay. Stuff. So,
gotcha. I've worked in some of those environments where it's really, really dusty, and at least for me, getting that dust and sand on my luggage was never a big deal. What ended up being a big deal is making sure to always change lenses in an enclosed environment, and where it's not windy, that dust isn't blowing around. so you're never exposing the sensor or the lenses to that dusty environment.
Yeah,
But then I have professional cameras that are weather sealed. I'm not too worried about dust getting into them unless I open it up. So weather sealed cameras, and then don't change lenses where it's going to be blowing dust around.
Yeah, the Sony just seems to suck up dust. The Olympus that I have just seems it doesn't bother it. I think the Sony actually manufactures its own dust. Swear to goodness.
I have experienced that as well.
Sony's really bad. I think Photo Surge, can't think of Surge's last name, basically said it best.
Surge Romilly,
yeah. He mentioned that he doesn't shoot above, I think, 16 or 18, F16 or F18, because anything after that is just too much dust on the sensor all the time. So I thought that was interesting, where I used to live at F22.
I've never found a benefit to it. The only reason I shoot at F22 would be to get an extreme sunstar.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, well, I use it because the depth of field as much as I can. If I could have afforded a tilt shift lens, I probably would have went that way, but I didn't. And now I'm in Sony, so they don't have any tilt shifts out. So
no, they don't. That's true.
No, they don't have any of it. So
yeah, I used to love my Canon tilt shift lens.
That makes sense.
I pulled this up because this reminded me of just when I started doing travel photography and trying to tell other people why they should go on this kind of a trip for their photography. Like when you walk into this sort of a landscape, you realize my photography skills are still kind of important, but I almost can't take a bad photo here. It's like one of those locations you go to and pretty much everything you photograph, people are going to go, wow, you're a brilliant photographer. How did you feel about that? Obviously you're thinking about your compositions, you're an accomplished landscape photographer, but somebody that walks into this kind of environment for the first time, how would you recommend they approach this?
Again, I would just look at your shadows. Try to keep your shadows to a minimum. That's, unless you're going to use the shadow as a artistic advantage. But on this one, the sun is directly above. If you look at the lower left-hand side, you'll see a couple small shadows under the tree. The branch that's hanging out there, but if you look around, you'll never see shadows anywhere else. So again, my mind, the way I was trained was keep your shadows to a minimum. So I had to work this a little bit to try and keep those shadows. But this one here for me is just the color sequence. Mm-hmm. The sand is so bloody red with the white and the blue sky. It's almost, red, white, and the sky was, red, white, and blue. So that side of it, the sequence there was just so great. To get into this area here, it's about a 2-kilometer walk if you do it the right way. Don't follow my guide. Or a shortcut.
From the 2 kilometers from the camp that you stayed at?
Yeah, from the parking lot.
Oh, from the parking lot. So you have to drive there from your camp. Yep. You can't camp close here?
Well, we probably, to get here was probably about a 3 or 4 hour drive from where we were. This is pretty close to our last day. But this is one of the spots that I'm working with the guide so that we can camp somewhere close by. I would love to come out here and do stars and painting with light. I can't wait to go back and do painting with light here.
Are you allowed to be here after dark?
I don't care.
I haven't researched this location, but other photographers have told me there are a lot of restrictions on being in this this section of the park.
Could be.
During certain hours, or it's very restricted.
Well, the park is very restricted. You've got to be in the park at night. You've got to camp in the park. It probably closed down, but we got lots of places you can camp. I don't think that would be a problem, but this is one of the spots that I want to be definitely for, or that sort of idea for stars and painting with light. This would just be phenomenal.
Okay. That's where I was going with that. What are you trying to put on your itinerary for people? Can they expect to get morning shots and night shots and midday, or what time of day will you be there?
Yeah, you know what? On this tour, you're not going to be able to put your camera down. You get sick and tired of it.
That's awesome.
You're because you don't control it all the time, and you've got to be certain time at certain area at a certain time. This is one of those spots where this is noon. This is probably midday noon, and realistically, it came out pretty good. I'm quite happy with it. I'm not one to shoot at noon. Shadows come out, I put the camera away. But again, this is totally out of my realm. But I had enough knowledge to try to minimize the shadows and keep it down.
Yeah, I've been practicing myself on shooting different times of day because we get in a rut only shooting sunrise and sunset, and you got to if you're going to be a good photographer, you got to be able to make the most of whatever time of day you're there, especially with travel photography. And shooting those times of day when, like this, you don't have a lot of shadows. There's not a lot of, it's harsh light, but you get the colors that pop. You get a lot of detail. On this Instagram photo, it's not a real high res photo, but you got a ton of detail in the floor here, in the tree. I think you saw this on your Facebook page as well, and it was a more high res photo. And it just you can feel the place, you sense being there. So, shooting midday or shooting when there's flat light has its advantages too. You can sense a lot more of the textures and the colors sometimes.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with that one. Yeah. But again, it's like on this trip, you're not putting your camera down. You've got to go. And like I said, it could be a once in a lifetime trip. So if at least you don't get a great shot, at least it's a memory. You've got a picture of it. Guys who do this and are doing the great photos are probably there all the time looking for that one photo. They'll spend days and months here going back and forth trying to get that one photo. I do it here for waterfall photography. I don't go to a waterfall just once. In fact, I'm leaving tonight to go back and do a reshoot. We were in a new waterfall the other day, and we got there at the wrong time. The light was harsh. And so now I'm waiting for the sun to start setting, and I'm going to go back tonight to just do a couple shots of the waterfall to go along with the movie because I want better pictures of it. So, but somebody who lives in Namibia or is able to get their lots has a better chance of getting photos better aware. And see the bird standing in that tree?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't happen very often, but that's where you have a guide who sees things like this, and then he looks at it and goes, no, the light's not right. Let me move around here. And this is exactly the one I was talking about, where the guide actually pulled the truck into a different area and said, there, that's better light. So
and the bird kind of followed you. So you got the light on the front of the bird instead of like the shadow on his face.
Yeah. Yeah. And he wasn't afraid of us. He's a pretty big guy. He looks like it. He's about the size of a good-sized turkey. Sort of small guy. But and that's where the guide, to me, he was learning about photography as well as everything else. Where it's like, I got to move the truck. We'll get you better light, Bob.
That's fun when you work with a guide who's actually into it and cares about what you're doing as a photographer, rather than somebody who's like begrudgingly, okay, I'll drive the truck over there.
Well, that's
actually into it. Then it's more fun for you and for your guests as well.
Yeah, well, that's the thing about this trip and working with me and working with the guide is that most times if you pay to go out on one of these safaris from the lodge, it's 3 hours. You're in and out in 3 hours. We're out for 8 hours or longer. We're going to be out there for 8 hours in a day taking pictures. We're going to go from point A to point B, but it may take us 8 hours to get to point B for the night because we're going to stop at all these places, and you're going to have lots of time to work out the shot that you want, or we'll get you into the shot that you want. And these are, to me, this is a great photo. I don't have a problem with it. It's normally not my style, but it's a shot. There's no HDR. There's not a lot of work going on in this one. It's just being in the right spot at the right time with a good camera to take the shot. And that's what this is all about, making sure that you're in the right spot at the right time.
Right.
If you could scroll up back up. Nope. Second one below the tree, right there. This little guy sitting here, well, that's the other on the other side. The guy spotted that. I didn't see that. And we're traveling around. This is noon hour, and it's hot out. So you find a lot of animals under the tree.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even see that. Again, I didn't see that. The guide saw that and stopped the truck and said, there's your shot.
There's your shot.
There. It's like, I got to give this guy credit. There's a lot of things that I didn't see that he did, and he knew exactly where to put me in the right spot.
That's fun.
So
were there photo opportunities that you got that you didn't expect, or things that you could photograph that you weren't expecting to see there?
Well, I didn't have a lot of expectations going there. That's the thing with me. I didn't have a lot of expectations of going there. I just kind of went there to see what I could get. And I walked away with what I would call a pretty vast amount of great photos. So I didn't go out with expectations. Now, the next time that I go out, I probably will have a little bit more expectations, but I'll be able to pick my shots a little more. So, I've got pictures of Steinbeck's heads, or all the shots that I wanted to get to build the website, plus more. So now I've got lots of shots I can throw on my Facebook side of it and things like this. One of the shots, the shot of the elephant was one of those times where I wanted that shot of the head. I wanted the shot of this elephant's head. That was one of my goals, to get close enough to get a shot of an elephant's head. Mm-hmm. So we worked on that. And it's funny because like the guide, he was so in tune with the animals and the elephants. It's like he knew when this guy was pissed off and we had to go. The elephant was walking down its path, and he watched it, it was getting closer, and it started flapping its ears and making some sort of noise, and he said, we're done, we're out of here.
He's starting the Jeep. He's saying, I hope you got your shot because we're leaving.
Yeah. He just said, we're gone. We're out of here, bud.
Is this one trip that you've got right now for April 1st of next year, or are these different trips, or these are all locations?
Those are all the places we're going. Those are the destinations we're going to hit. We will be going to all of those places. One we haven't talked about is the very bottom one. And this is a very famous area in Namibia, and there's an arch, a set of arches here. And unfortunately, I only spent a couple hours here. I didn't have enough time to spend 6 or 8 or do stars and starscapes. So this is one of the spots where we're going to be camping, and we're going to be about 2 kilometers from this arch, and we'll be doing the Milky Way over top of this arch.
Mm.
So that's one of the things I'm dying to get back to shoot. But this is a fantastic spot to just go and play.
And where is it that you're flying into?
Windhoek, the capital. We start at Windhoek, and then from Windhoek we go to a private game reserve. We'll spend something else that's not up here yet. We spend time with the bush people. So we'll spend some time with the bush people, and then we're off to Etosha National Park. We'll spend a couple days taking pictures of the animals in Etosha National Park. And then we'll head off to Spitzkop, spend the night there. Etosha National Park to Spitzkop is about 400 kilometers, so it's about a 4-hour drive. But here you'll be in luxury tents, showers, food, everything's looked after. The whole safari is all inclusive, except for alcohol. If you want alcohol, you got to bring your own.
Including tips to guides?
No, gratuities your own.
Okay. And then how about travel to and from?
Travel to and from is you've got to pay yourself.
And that's pretty common.
Yeah, no, that's usually the way it is.
Right. But once you land on the ground and the tour starts, all food, transportation, photography, education, everything's covered.
Accommodations, everything's covered.
Is there a spot on the website where we would see like what's included, what's not included? Or is that in the copy here if I were to read the whole thing?
No, go to book. I'm going to start adding some more stuff, but if you book your tour and scroll down,
there you go.
All that information there.
Gotcha.
What's included, not included, camera gear, clothing, travel insurance.
Okay. We covered everything I really wanted to talk to you about. Was there anything else that you want to, that we didn't touch on that you want to tell people?
No, you've got contact from my website. I'm available 24/7 by email if anybody has any questions.
Tell us the website again.
africansafari.io. And the other one is whosaidphotography.com.
So I have a couple of closing thoughts on this conversation. And number one is, when you're organizing travel for other people or you're planning a photography trip for other people, I find it very exciting, and it is totally different than going to do it for yourself. You're creating your own thing that you're then going to introduce other people to, and you want them to be as excited about it as you are. So there's a whole different level of just creating something as a creator that you're sharing with other people. And that to me is exciting. That's part of why I do it, honestly. I get a lot out of just seeing that smile on other people's faces when I've introduced them to something new. When I take people on a tour and they just light up and they realize that everything's been arranged for them and they're going to have a great time without having to really do a ton of work on their own. So that for me, as a creator of these kind of tours, that's pretty priceless. And then for yourself, it doesn't matter if you are, if you're not a professional photographer, just taking the time to plan a specific photography trip, set up a shot list, decide on your locations, go there and specifically execute a travel photography trip can be thoroughly exciting. Even if you don't come home with photos that you're going to publish, if you're not getting paid for them, that doesn't matter. The doing of it is what matters. And to me, that's what I hope people get out of this, whether you're a creator of trips for other people or you're just doing it for yourself. This may come off a little harsh, but get out from behind your computer, quit watching other people's YouTube videos, and go do it yourself. That's the only way you're going to learn, and that's the only way to keep yourself excited about practicing your photography and getting out there and just learning, continue to grow. All right, cheers. Get out there, go shoot.